Hi, I'm Steph from Q Marketing and welcome to Canned, the Marketing Podcast. This week we've got something a bit different, our first ever live episode recorded at South by Southwest Sydney. In this episode, you'll hear us make the bold claim that the future of marketing is in fact not AI, but human. We have a pretty fun debate on stage with our guests Alex and Matt, so let's dive in.
Very privileged to have the wonderful team from Canned, the Marketing Podcast, Ben and Steph, all the way from New Zealand, coming over to record their first ever live edition of the podcast. And they've got a couple of fabulous guests as well. I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Please welcome to the stage Ben, Steph, and the team.
All right. Thanks, Alex. It's really good to be here in Sydney. I'm Ben Van Rooy. I am from Human Digital, the B2B marketing agency. And this is Canned, the Marketing Podcast, live from South by Southwest, right here in Tumbalong Park in Sydney. And we're on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. And I'd like to pay my respects to our traditional owners. It's great to be here, and thank you for coming. As Alex said, enjoy the beer and the gyoza while we entertain you. I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Steph Quantrill from Q Marketing, and we've got two fabulous guests as well. We've got Alex Holden, who's the Group GM of Brand and Customer from EVT, and we also have Matt Meffan from Aether, and he's Head of Enterprise Growth. So we're going to have a chat while you enjoy your lunch. And Steph is going to tell us a bit about our topic today.
Right. So fun fact about this podcast is we kind of know that all of the topics this week are going to be really AI focused. And quite frankly, we're a bit over it. So we want to kind of push against that a little bit. Like you've probably heard 70% of the chats this week have been AI this, AI that. You know, if you're not on AI, you've got no future ahead of you. So we're going to push against that. We want to really talk about the fact that the future of marketing is in fact human and not AI. So as been mentioned, I'm Steph. I run my own marketing consultancy business. I have a long history in marketing, and our podcast is really, we unpack all the kind of the stuff that's happening in marketing, and we tend to take a pretty, sometimes we have quite a contrarian view, Ben and I. So that's what we're hoping for today. So let's dive right in. I just want to kind of introduce Alex. So Alex will introduce, she's come to us from EVT. So tell us a little bit about yourself, Alex.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is exciting. First time South by Southwest. It's a bit of a sore point for me. I was headed to Austin in 2020 and then the world closed down. So I feel very fortunate to be here today, which is nice, in recording your live podcast. So very exciting. I am fresh back from 8 months of mat leave. So go easy on me today. I'm still like lack of sleep overnight. But I have the great privilege of heading up the customer and brand strategies for EVT. Now, there's probably some people going, well, what is EVT? Good question. It stands for Entertainment, Ventures and Travel. And we have a staple of amazing experiential brands. Under our entertainment division, we operate cinemas in Australia, Germany, and New Zealand. Brands that you would know of, Event Cinemas, Moonlight Cinemas, also the State Theatre. Under our travel brands, we operate from luxury all the way through to budget. QT Hotels, Ridges, Atura, Lilo, a whole lot of independent branded hotels as well. And a lot of people's personal favorites is we do own and operate Thredbo Ski Resort. So as you can imagine, us doing field trips is not boring. It's a whole lot of fun. I do say I reckon I have one of the best jobs in the company because we talk about putting customer at the center of everything that we do. And that's very true of kind of how we operate and how our marketing teams operate as well.
Awesome. And what about now? I'd like to introduce Matt. The fun fact about Matt, he can't read. Do you want to tell us about that, Matt?
Matt can't read. So Aether is an AI solution. I thought the topic was the future of marketing is AI. I had committed, I'm going to do my best here to be the AI apologist and the AI pragmatist. You may not have heard of Aether. I would guess some of you have probably heard of Tracksuit and Ideally. So Aether is from the same venture studio with a third venture we launched only 2 months ago, which was when I joined. It's a really interesting model with new and improved. They go out, they speak to 70 to 100 senior marketers. They do some deep exploration of what are the pain points in a marketer's role. They mock up some UIs. And when they start to get some interest and there's some pre-sales, we go and build a company around it. They bring in some founders. We've got 3 great founders who are here in Sydney this week. Karsten, who used to run TikTok in New Zealand, Ursula, who was involved in Xero, and then Dan, who is my boss, and he was involved in Quantrill. So, yeah, 2 months, we've got some really good early traction. We're already onboarded one of the big 4 banks, major insurance company, major telco, and I'll be sharing about some of the ways they're using the platform today. But essentially, Aether is the problem that we want to solve is institutional amnesia. Right now, I'm going to talk a lot today about creating PowerPoints. You're all marketers.
With humans. PowerPoints with humans, Matt.
With humans, 20% human. Put your hand up if you enjoy building PowerPoints, if it's the part of your job that you cherish the most.
Nice, in the back, yes.
I knew there would be one. I'll talk a little bit more today, but yeah, I've got my Aether AI hat on today, and I want to try and offer a really balanced perspective.
No.
So we're going to run this lunch in 2 parts. So we're going to have some questions for our amazing guests, and then we're going to open it up for questions to all of you after that. But Steph has the first couple of questions, so hot off the bat.
Okay, so Alex has just said that she's come back from mat leave, which is awesome. Now, what have you walked into? Because you've been off for 9 months. And what's life like now in the EVT office versus what it was like beforehand? And what I mean by that is everyone writing their emails in poetry form thanks to Copilot? Like, what's happening?
Look, it certainly has changed, but I think it's important to kind of step back a little first and go, I want to say we were relatively early adopters of AI. I do think that AI is kind of, I don't want to call it a buzz term, but it's certainly something we're talking more and more about now, even though we've probably been using it for the better part of the last 5, 6, 7 years. And so what I think is the biggest change is instead of us having conversations about how we use AI to optimize our day and our workflows, we're actually going, how do our customers use AI in their day-to-day life? And I think that is the biggest shift. It's one of the most important questions. If I think about us as a experiential company, that's anything from how are people now going through the research and consideration, even conversion stage of the customer journey, and how that has changed because consumers are now, AI, things like ChatGPT have given consumers like that in their hand, right? And that's not conversations we were having before. So it's like, how does our brand show up in that space?
Yeah. So you're saying that the customer dynamics shifted dramatically, how people are finding you has shifted dramatically. I imagine how people use hotels hasn't changed though.
Yeah, very true. Very true. It's, it's still their bed for the night, right? But it's how we're discovered and how people are booking trips. I think about my own personal life and, I was lucky enough to have 8 months of maternity leave, which means I got to go on some holidays, which was great. But I went to Norfolk Island about a month ago. And I took a 6-month-old and I took a 92-year-old, my grandma. It was her bucket list location. And I knew nothing about Norfolk Island, but I was able to put in ChatGPT, suggest a 4-day itinerary based off taking a 6-month-old, a 4-year-old, my husband, who's just as complicated, 92-year-old with accessibility, needs accessibility because she's got a walker. And base it around customer reviews. Like, where's the best place to stay? Where should we eat? And, within a matter of seconds, I was given an itinerary that really worked for us and gave me everything that I needed to know. Like, the next evolution of that is how can I then book direct via that channel to make it even more seamless?
And that is starting to happen already. ChatGPT is just testing e-commerce within the chat itself, so you never have to leave. So it's only going to be a matter of time where they can book travel directly in that chat.
Did you tell your 90-year-old grandmother that you had used the robots to book the trip?
I sent her a very beautifully formatted itinerary, which I did take out of ChatGPT and reformatted myself. And she was very impressed. She's quite a savvy 92-year-old. Like, she's online, she's doing all the things, but I think some of that technology does blow her mind.
Can I just say, I took my aunts on a family holiday to the Gold Coast and I did an itinerary and nobody read it. So maybe AI can out. Maybe I'm the problem. It's not AI.
I do think what's important, but in that process, and I think about my own experience, I still went and did my own research off the back of that. And it almost helped me to start, right? Because I think what's so important is sentiment and reviews, and you still need to go and do your own kind of checks and balances in that space as well.
Yeah, and I think we're going to speak a little bit about that. And again, I'm going to do my absolute best not to repeat potentially all of the one-liners that you've heard this week. But that whole checking and adding that kind of that human overlay, I think, is going to be a really important part of it, right? That's what we want to speak to. Okay, so Matt, I know you'd prepared a wonderful speech about how the future was your business and AI.
And it kind of is.
Why don't we start with why you kind of have to drink the Kool-Aid, right? You're being employed.
When I put the hat on.
You're being employed by an AI business. You kind of need it to work, and you've got a baby on the way, so you need it to work.
Exactly right. So, I mean, I'll be the first to say that AI has a lot to answer for. Nobody's going to argue that. There's a lot of AI founders and advocates who are kind of way out ahead of their skis. However, we can't deny that there is something pretty special happening here. For example, I've been working with marketers for 20 years, and I think this is easily the most seismic paradigm shift that I've seen. But where we're trying to be really disciplined with ourselves is to just keep things in check and be very realistic about what AI can and should do and what it shouldn't. But just, some data. So JP Morgan released a really interesting report 2 weeks ago. They attributed 92% of the GDP growth in the US in the first half of this year to AI and to AI adjacent companies. Without that, the US GDP growth would have been flat. Second thing that I found really interesting is ADMA released some research, really comprehensive research about 2 weeks ago, where they surveyed 1,000 Australian marketers. 75% of the respondents reported that they were using AI solutions in their role every week. I actually thought that was a little bit low. So 750, I'm not sure what the other 250 are doing. And then the last thing, I mean, we know that NVIDIA is a pretty special company, and this whole AI revolution is very much being engineered off the back of their innovation. The market cap of NVIDIA is now more than the entire UK stock exchange, the entire Japanese stock exchange, the entire Indian stock exchange. So it's undeniable. There's a lot of investment going in here. I think it is a bubble, but there will be some winners that emerge.
So if I'm going to buy your product, how am I going to make sure I'm doing a good job? Because what if I'm a crap marketer and I get your tool? Will it make me better?
Yeah, the way that I position it is...
I'm not, by the way.
I'm a crap marketer. It will get me to about 80% proficiency. We'll sit on top of your knowledge base. We'll absorb and we'll archive all of your information. Using queries, we'll build those into PowerPoints. Those PowerPoints should always be checked, peer reviewed. Ask Deloitte about that. I think they'll have an opinion on that after the last couple of weeks. But it's not going to get you promoted to CMO, I think.
Okay, right. So AI is not going to get me promoted to CMO.
Not yet.
No. One of the things we've been talking about kind of as we prepared this is I have come across some really, really awful examples this week. And Ben and I talk about this a lot, of AI slop. And I've had to correct people's work because they've chucked everything into AI and they've just presented that as a done deal. And it's actually created extra work for me. So I'm getting incredibly frustrated with the 75% usage of people actually using the product. How do we make sure that, I know we pay lip service to this, right? We go like, check your work. And so actually I'll tell an anecdote. Somebody had written a performance plan using ChatGPT this week and presented it to me as a done deal. I then put that back through ChatGPT and said, can you assess this? Tell me the good things and the bad things. Then I said, I'd like to tell this person that they've used ChatGPT incorrectly. And ChatGPT said, no, probably don't do that. So it was giving me a guided conversation to call somebody up. But I think that, so if we think about kind of what we're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, that more and more of this is happening. And I think we're going to have conversations around bringing yourself to the table and bringing your own skill set.
I think the other really important thing is we make a really clear distinction between the generic LLMs. This is things like ChatGPT, Copilot, and then something like Aether, which is informed by source documents that you've curated. We're not using the open web. We know the open web is naturally inconsistent and often inaccurate. This is where these hallucinations come from. Our thesis is that if documents are saved on your SharePoint, final artifacts, talking about PowerPoints, Excel documents, then they're probably accurate. And then there's also a citation layer, so we can very quickly go through, okay, where did this piece of evidence come from? I'll go back and reference it. And this is where we have this kind of peer review layer, which should always, which should always take place.
So it sounds like, Matt, that the work still has to be done. You still have to take the time to get accurate data to feed into the model to get the right answer out.
Yeah. And then it's like lots of things that we talk about in marketing, junk in, junk out. We just have to be careful about the data that we ingest. And this was true in the big data kind of revolution. It's just as true in the AI revolution.
And Alex, you were saying at the start that your company was an early adopter. Where do you draw the line currently as a company on where you use AI and where you don't?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that is an ever-evolving conversation, to be honest. We certainly use it to make us work smarter, I think. And when I say smarter, just more efficiently. It certainly has helped us start briefs. Like the last thing sometimes at the end of the day I want to do is write a brief for an agency. And it certainly helps get that started. So I feel like it cuts time down there. We, when I say early adopters, we use it for chatbots, and we use it in a great example is our customer service team. They get thousands of inquiries a week, right? Especially if you think, summer, Christmas period, blockbuster season for movies. And we are now able to halve the amount of time it takes us to respond to customers because it's going through previous responses and suggesting replies. We still need, like what Matt was saying, there is still human intervention there, right? Because you need that quality control piece in. And so, I don't think anything at the moment in terms of process is kind of off the table, but it's about how we aid our teams. And I think that's kind of that's how we're looking at it.
And are there circumstances where it's getting it wrong, and how are you dealing with that?
Yeah, look, and that's where that quality control piece comes in, right? Because I think in this day and age, we are skeptical. And I do think we second guess some of the outputs, particularly in some of the platforms that we're using in terms of AI. And certainly we will get it wrong in the future. We probably have got it wrong in the past, but it's about how you learn and adapt quickly because it is a rapidly evolving landscape.
And we were talking earlier before the podcast about using synthetic data. And this is a fairly controversial point across marketers and researchers. Do you think there is a place for synthetic data? And just for people that may not be across it, synthetic data is, aggregating a whole lot of data to help answer questions that you might have as a marketer or a researcher. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, I am a skeptic, if I'm being honest. I know that research is expensive. I am definitely a research-based marketer. I love conducting customer research. At EVT, I've mentioned it before, we talk about putting the customer at the center of everything we do. And that always starts with what is it that our customers want? What is it that they need? And actually asking them is a big part of that. I have been presented on more than one occasion, opportunities to use synthetic data instead of surveying or instead of having focus groups. We haven't entered that space yet. I think about some research that we conducted a few years ago where we were really interested in getting customer feedback on new seats we were putting into cinemas. And we went into one of our locations, ripped all the seats out, put in all the different seats we were testing. and you can't use synthetic data to get feedback on that. AI-driven responses to that type of research isn't telling you how comfortable they are, what changes they would make. So I do think there's a place for it potentially if your budget is really strapped. But I don't think there is anything more powerful than actually asking your customers questions. And let's be honest, sending a survey is not that expensive. If you can use your own databases as your focus groups or as your sample, I don't think there's anything more powerful than that.
I would not trust. I just really wouldn't trust synthetic. If it was someone came to me and said, right, you're going to innovate this new product, or we've got this amazing campaign and it's all based on insights from synthetic data, I just don't feel like I'd be I just wouldn't feel comfortable going to a CEO and putting that in front of them at this stage. But I agree, the nuance of being in a room with someone, particularly in that qual space, and actually touching and feeling and watching body language and how people interact with each other, I think that's the right thing to do when you want to make some major decisions about human behaviour.
And Matt, a similar question to you. What have you found AI maybe can't or shouldn't do either yet or ever in marketing?
Honestly, I think it's the polished final product. I think as marketers, we're naturally very proud of our work. Obviously, when there is a miss, people are piling on pretty quickly these days, and it's almost, there's a rapidly evolving PR cycle, probably driven by people like Stephanie, who will very quickly jump on kind of AI errors and AI inconsistencies. So, my opinion is, I think, let's remove, something like Aether will give you 10 or 20 hours back a week. Let's invest that in the things that marketing should be elite at, which is the storytelling, the narrative building, the stakeholder management. So I think I have this sort of philosophy is that there's jobs, and jobs have tasks and people have skills. I think AI is going to be very, very good at removing the tasks and, giving us that time back. AI isn't necessarily going to be able to replace the skills that people bring to an organization.
So if the stairco comes, we're marketers and we have to present tomorrow morning on a short notice, summarizing all of the work that we've been doing over the last 3 months. We're all busy actually executing that work. How does Aether help with that situation?
So, we're working with the CMO at the moment who's leaving the organization and onboarding to the next. He's using Aether to build a handover pack to brief the incoming CMO on everything that's happening in the organization, the campaigns, agency briefs in less than 60 seconds. We do a lot of cyclical reporting like NPS. There's building PowerPoints, and then there's also, rebuilding PowerPoints for different audiences. So with simple prompts, we can say, help my field team relay their NPS results to leaderships in their region, help us understand NPS results for different demographics and different audiences. All of that stuff that I don't think is the best use of a marketer's time.
But my point, and I'm going to keep saying it, make sure you understand what went into that content, right? So,
and it doesn't get rid of the hard work that you have to do to create that strong base, to create all of those presentations. Like Aether isn't creating presentations out of thin air. It's built on structured data and other slides and copy.
Yeah. We talked about this, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. I think that there's, when you're doing it yourself and you're pulling information together, you're absorbing the information. And I do think that is something that we can get missed when you're using kind of AI to build out.
Do someone's performance plan and you haven't figured it out. Yeah.
And so I feel like, there still needs to be that piece of human intervention there, because otherwise you're not learning as you go as well.
Yeah.
Do you have a couple more questions, Steph?
Well, it's not so much of a question, but so often when we do this podcast, we talk about what's been happening in the news. And I really I thought this was brilliant because it just highlights to me our exact point. ChatGPT have recently gone out with an ad campaign. That ad campaign, to quote the adage, focuses on human-centric, subtle storytelling through simple out-of-home and video ads, emphasizing how the technology helps with everyday challenges rather than explaining its features. ChatGPT is using real people to create their ads.
But that's a brand campaign, isn't it? Like it's talking about the feeling of using ChatGPT.
Yeah. And that's my point, I guess, is the human-centric side of this is the emotion, and it's dialing into emotion. And what comes from being in marketing is that constant curiosity and asking why and really wanting to understand the customer better. And so I think that speaks a lot to kind of how you guys are working, Alex. And that sense of curiosity, I think, is part of human nature.
Yeah, look, I definitely agree with that. We and it's interesting. You think about an AI-driven company using real people and building an ad in the right way. I think about our experiences and how we have to advertise to people or market to people. And, we can't use an AI image to represent our hotel rooms because it's not authentic. It's also not going to be what it looks like when you walk into one of our hotels. So, look, it's certainly not an avenue that we're going down. But I do think the human element of, we talk about sentiment, and I talk about this a lot. Sentiment is really important. It's always been important, like how customers feel about your brands and about your experiences. But it's even more important now. How people are talking about your brands online is really driving a lot of the output it's certainly how GEO is working at the moment. And so you think, things like Reddit, Wikipedia, like user-generated content is what's feeding a lot of the LLMs. And these are all acronyms I've learned in the last week since being back. But it is, now more than ever, your experience has to back how you're appearing online. Otherwise, you're not going to rank in those spaces.
And you had the music example, right? This is this idea of feeling something.
Yeah, and I'll be really honest. I don't often see AI creative that makes me feel anything. I don't know if you agree. It's an intangible thing. It's just often you don't feel something the same way as you do with kind of the old-fashioned way. My wife's a singer-songwriter. We've kind of played around with some of these generic models, and it can't craft a song. It can't craft a lyric, regardless of how much you try. And I think let's keep AI. It's really, really useful for finding patterns. It's synthesizing large information sets, producing summaries. It's really good at the what, and then the marketer's job is the what next or the what now. And I think that marriage is going to be in everybody's best interest.
I agree.
It is getting good at the creative, though. I tested the new Sora mobile app from ChatGPT to create a clip of me on top of the Opera House.
It was awful.
Doing a walk. Steph thinks it was awful, but a few people actually thought it was real. Like, I've had quite a few people saying, how was it? So it gets better every day. And I think, Matt, you thought I was actually up on top of the Opera House.
This is Matt who can't read, Matt who can't distinguish between.
But it's changing fast, and that's the thing. And you have to try it. I mean, I think, Steph poo-poos over everything, but you have to try it. You have to give it a go. You can't just hate it and not use it. So
no, no, that's fine. Like, I agree, and and good on you for giving Sora a go twice on your 2 consecutive LinkedIn posts with an American accent. Good on you.
The first one was an Aussie accent, and the second one was American.
And the only thing I felt was rage.
Well, at least you're feeling something, Steph.
Yeah.
And, rage is what gets the internet going these days.
You made me feel a human emotion. I'd scroll past it really fast.
So, Alex, we've seen hype cycles before, social media, NFTs, some would say crypto. What makes AI different to everything that we've seen before?
Yeah, look, we've talked about this a lot. I reckon that for marketers, this rapidly evolving landscape is probably the biggest change we've seen since social media. I got challenged by that by a colleague the other day who thinks it's actually the biggest change since the dot-com boom, which I thought was scary and interesting all at the same time. I think for us, why it's so different is it's really making us sit back and go, how do we appear online? Like, how are our brands, like how are we feeding into what I talked about before, right? When our customers are using these type of platforms, how do we become part of that conversation? And so it's really about, we talked about GEO slightly before, but it's optimizing in that space. And there's a really fine line between optimizing for LLMs and maintaining a really unique brand voice. I think about some of the brands we have in our staple, the QT brand, for example, it's quirky. It's a little bit left of center. We have a brand called Lilo, which is really, it's a lifestyle budget travel brand, and it's a bit cheeky. And they may not necessarily translate into LLMs because it's not your standard vanilla language. So we're really about, how do we strike the balance between the two? How do you maintain a unique brand voice and how you represent your brand in the online space while still making sure you're part of the conversation that your customers are having?
And are there ways or things that you're doing to make sure that you're appearing in these large language model searches?
Yeah, look, and that's certainly you've got to kind of look at it the same way you'd look at search, right? So it's a bit like SEO. And so you're optimizing in the same type of ways. There's certainly going to be things that brands are going to change. And it's also changing every day, right?
And the rules are still the same. I mean, essentially, we want quality content. That's what customers are looking for. They want the right answers, the correct answers, and the tricks are coming. I think that's the thing with SEO. SEO used to be the activity that you were doing to drive organic connections with your customers, and very quickly a whole industry sprung up to trick the algorithm. What's the latest trick to get you up in that rank? The same thing is going to happen with these search engines in AI as well.
It's great for Reddit.
Yeah, correct. And I think that that's the biggest difference, right, is that it's actually utilizing some websites like Reddit to bring in what customers are saying about your brands in a way that traditional search hasn't in the past. So it's an evolving brief.
And Matt, talking about the creation of content and that transparency, how transparent do we need to be as marketers about when we use AI or the role that AI is playing in the creation of this content?
So I thought about this. My feeling is that it's probably a non-issue. I think we'd all get depressed really quickly if we had mandatory AI disclosures. In some way, shape, or form, I would say it's creating, it's touching or infusing its way into everything that we do. However, I think the really good work, and like marketing always has, the best work, the cream's going to rise to the top. But there's certainly checks and balances that I think have to be in place. So understanding, what's feeding the LLM, where the information's coming from, using citations when we make claims or when we quantify things so that we can quickly reference where that information is coming from. And there's some simple things that we can be doing. I think the reality is AI is going to be a part of all of our jobs. I don't think it needs to be disclosed.
But I think we should reward originality because
the market will. Yeah.
Because we run the risk of everything being a little bit same, and good marketing and good customer connection is busting out of being generic, right? So I think we might not declare it perhaps in the future, but I think we should definitely be seeking originality.
Do you think this is going to raise the bar?
Don't ask me.
Do you know what? I actually think it might, right? I was having this discussion with a colleague the other day, right? And they were certainly skeptics when things like Photoshop came, right? They're like, oh, it's going to take away all of our creative. But it actually gave creative people infinite possibilities. So I actually feel like these tools are going to make our creatives even more creative. Certainly, it's going to make people who are uncreative, feel like they've got a bit of a pep in their step. One of my favorite stories is one of our very senior managers in our business uses it to write anniversary cards for his wife and asks it to be less romantic when he writes them.
I mean, that's a hot tip. Yeah, I'll take that. It's a hot tip.
Less romantic.
Less romantic. Too mushy. Tone it down a little bit. So But I do think when you put the tools in the hands of experts, like think about the infinite possibilities. Like I'm really excited to see what our creatives do with the new emerging technology in the future.
And there's always going to be the lazy side of ourselves that it's looking for a shortcut, and it will help us be more efficient, but laziness I don't think will get rewarded. It is that originality and that unique thinking and perspective that will change.
I think if you're lazy by nature, that will come out regardless, right? Like I think, I make jokes about this, but I do think if you're that way inclined, you're not going to become the CMO.
And I think, we didn't want to leverage kind of overused platitudes, but I do, I do think like it's true. Marketers are more resource constrained. We're being asked to do more with less. Let's let AI take care of some of the really elementary stuff and let us focus on what is going to elevate our work.
One of the things I'm quite interested in from your side, Alex, is I can foresee a shift going back into those personal experiences. The things like today where we are sitting here in person, we're eating food, we're enjoying each other's company. And I think like you take the likes of a QT hotel experience, I can see that becoming valued more as a pushback against some of these kind of more automated, frictionless world. I don't know. Is that something you guys are talking about?
Yeah, and look, and not even from the rise of like consumer-based AI technologies, but certainly it's been a massive shift post-COVID. Customers are definitely picking premium experiences, and they're much more, I don't want to say fussy, but they expect more as well. And so we see a rise in people choosing QT hotels, or they want more out of, Lilo's a great example, right? Gone are the days where, travel needed to be cheap and nasty. Like it can be budget friendly and pretty. And so I think customers nowadays, they want more. And we see that as well in our cinema side of the business. You think about how many different cinema experiences you can have. You're not just going and sitting in a black box with standard seats. Now there's 40X, there's ScreenX, there's Gold Class, there's Premium, there's Junior. There's a whole lot of ways that you can come and watch one film. And so that's what customers want now. They do want that kind of, that something that they can touch, something tangible.
Yeah. I mean, AI can't go on a first date for you. Or can it?
Maybe it can. So we're going to open up the floor to questions. So if you have questions for Steph, Alex, Matt, or I.
Oh, hang on. We're recording, so you have to do it.
Less of a question, but more, I guess, something that I'm thinking about others in the creative space. I don't feel comfortable with artists' work being ripped off. And I think that, I know that some image libraries are doing better job of it. And, I agree with AI for efficiency, but I feel deeply uncomfortable that somebody's craft and emotional expression is being used to create things. And how do we stop that? How do we guardrail it?
I believe there are lawsuits now. I believe that there is a whole bunch of American companies who are being sued for using artists to train their models and without their permission. So I think there are repercussions from that.
Yeah, it's challenging because, as you were saying before, Matt, half of the US economy is propped up with AI, which has been training on all of this IP that they haven't paid for. So that, legislators are in a tough position. They want to keep the AI boom going, but at the same time, they're being asked to legislate on these IP issues.
You were going to talk about the strikes.
Yeah. So, we operate cinemas, and a big thing that happened a few years ago were the actors' strikes. And one of the terms of that was AI and use of AI in Hollywood. Obviously, they got that element resolved, but it is certainly topical in our industry. And yeah, I think it's like I said, it's probably a watching brief on this one too. And it's great to see that there's legislation coming in to protect creative ideas.
But it is hard, and it's uncharted space, and similar to social media, it's moving really quick, and we've seen the harms that social media has done, and AI is probably going to do very similar things. Anyone else with a question?
you. Alex, you spoke a bit about, I think in your organization, you've been really lucky in that I assume your executives are on board with that balance between AI and human input. I don't necessarily think that is every organization. So I think there's a lot of like board level, exec level down scaremongering of we need to adopt AI. So, and marketing is the first place they look. Kind of flipping and saying, if you're talking to a peer who's in marketing and has this push to adopt AI, but they also are trying to find that balance, how would you kind of guide them on the best ways to educate and inform their executives on maintaining and keeping that balance? Because I do think we're in a world of like, I think that friction exists for a lot of people and they don't know how to overcome it. And I think EVT, I'd love to have a chat on how you guys are, where you are.
I'm not going to answer. So sorry. So I'm not going to answer that because I'll let the team answer it. But you're so right. And there is statistics to show that where companies are not letting people go and play with the tool, two things are happening. One thing is that if companies don't allow people to use the tools, they're going and doing it in their own time anyway. And the second thing that's happening is if you're relatively good at what you do, companies are losing people who are going, if my company won't invest in me to get me up to speed and give me the tools to kind of be on a competing level with other people, I'm going to go and work somewhere else. So that doesn't answer your question about how to explain it to the board, but it's a genuine risk.
And sorry, I couldn't hear the first part, but were you saying you have restriction, or are they saying can we replace everyone with?
I think it's more around the friction between like CMOs yourself who understand the balance between human and AI, but executives feeling pressure. So like your CEO being like, we need AI because that's what everyone's doing, so therefore we need it. So how do you ensure that you actually have the balance so you don't actually waste all your time on pilots that go nowhere and it's super inefficient and a waste of time and budget, and ensure you educate them on the balance?
Yes, and I think that I mentioned this before. I think AI has just been branded really well recently. We've actually been using AI for so long, and I think it's about being able to educate them on the proof points that already exist. I started my career in loyalty over 15 years ago, so it's probably giving my age away a little bit there. But I think one of the greatest things that AI has done for us is personalization. And feeding that into our marketing cycles. And 15 years ago, putting someone's name in a subject line was like the height of personalization. And being able for us in a cinema world go, hey, you've seen this film, you're most likely to see this film. But that was early stages of machine learning. So you'll probably find that there are so many proof points that exist in your business already where you're using AI. They're just not thinking about it in that way. And then it's about, really great examples in the media, Deloitte, right? This is why we need humans, because we need to make sure that there's a quality control in the work that we're producing. But I think it's about finding those proof points that probably already exist to go, hey, we're not doing AI. It's just called something else. And this is how it's represented across our business.
And AI won't solve all your problems either. It's not a magic wand that we can just wave around and fix everything. That's just not how it works.
I think it's just going to solve your most important problems. No, I do have an opinion as owner, and honestly,
do you?
I think let's talk maybe. I think there's absolutely AI cowboys out there. These organizations are burning through so much cash. They have obligations that a lot of them are very unlikely to meet. But I think as a buyer, be really honest and say, look, I want to do a proof of concept, something really contained before I go and give you a whole bunch of my budget. Looks good on paper. It sounds like you're going to solve all of my problems. But unless they're willing to run a POC or help you kind of develop a business case for a larger engagement, then that's a red flag.
And this isn't an AI problem either. Like, it's a CEO problem or a leadership problem. We've all been in pilots that go nowhere because, we've had bad data or bad decision making sitting behind it. Yeah, this is not an AI problem.
No, you need to know what the problem is that you're trying to solve, right? So going back to the point that AI is not the panacea to fix it, what is the thing that you're solving for? And then therefore, what is the right solution? Social media was supposed to fix all the problems with TV. You could give lots of
some of them, but it created a whole lot of new ones. Yeah. Any other questions? Good. Well, you've been such a great audience. Thank you for listening to Can, the Marketing Podcast live. It's been really great to be here with you. I want to say a big thanks to Alex and Susie and the Claire Hayes team. Just awesome. Enjoy the rest of the conference. Make sure that you buy some more beer and some more gyoza. And thank you for being part of our live audience.
Thank you.